we here in Radio Kerry have split the candidates over 4 separate debates in order to get a full examination of their policies, to give them time to explain to you why you should vote for them. The first of our 4 panels in studio with me this morning, I have Deputy Daly of Sinn Féin. I have Norma Foley, Minister for Education of Fianna Fáil. I have Deputy Michael Healy-Rae, independent candidate, and we have Billy O'Shea, who's running for the Fine Gael party. Good morning to all of you, and thanks for giving us your time off the canvas trail to talk to us this morning. We're going to get straight into the issues, and we're going to get straight into the issue of housing this morning. In this county, rents have increased by 6.5% in the last 12 months. House prices, the average house price has gone up by anywhere between 10 and 15%. We're seeing long housing waiting lists, and we're seeing a huge demand out there for affordable and social housing. Deputy Daly, I'll start with you. Sinn Féin are promising 370,000 houses over the next 5 years. What will you do? What will you do if you get into power to fix the housing crisis, and fix it quickly?
Well, first of all, we've listened to all the difficulties that there are in housing in Kerry. There is no bigger issue with people coming into the office. As you said, we have a plan. It is the most comprehensive plan, I think, in the history of the state to deal with housing. You cannot... it's never been as hard to buy or to rent a home if you can find somewhere to rent. So there's no affordable housing of any note in Kerry. So Ona Bryn has worked with all the stakeholders over the last number of years and has come up with, as I said, a very expansive plan. So what we want to do is we want to have, over the next few years, 75,000 social housing. As you know, in 2011, the Fine Gael-led government stopped building social housing. That has when I was in the council, I think there was 1 house in Kerry or in Tralee in 2017, and I think 6 in 2018. So there's been a big backlog ever since. Lists went from probably 6 or 7 years up to 14 or 15 years. There's a huge absence of 1 and 2 bedroom houses because every single time that the previous governments have outsourced housing to the market, whether it's in nursing homes, student accommodation or social housing lists, there have problems have been caused. So what we want to do is 50,000 affordable houses, to have a bank of affordable houses for those who earn between 35,000, which is the threshold for social housing, and 90,000, and have a bank of affordable housing for them. We also want, as I said, 75,000 social housing, 60,000 rental and self-built houses, and 115,000 private. It is an attempt, and the best attempt I think you're going to find to deal with the problems that we have in housing in Kerry. It's fully costed not only by Department of Housing but also by DEPR, and I think we can persist with the same patchwork approach, kind of firefighting that has been going on for the past number of years, or you can have a comprehensive plan to deal with every single aspect which is causing difficulties in Kerry, because people can't afford the rents, they can't afford the housing, and they are years and years.
Okay.
And since the town councils were abolished in 2014, there has been a huge problems with emergency accommodation. So what you have in effect is people from everywhere from Ballinarterrig down to Sneem and up to Tarbert seeking emergency accommodation. They are put into Tralee, and that's not fair either. There's no emergency accommodation.
Okay, Minister Foley, Daly is directing the failure, as he said, of housing at you and your party in government. Darragh O'Brien is a minister. Have you failed? And what will you do to fix it over the next 5 years?
Without a doubt, housing is the single biggest issue. And Pat's quite correct. I sat in Kerry County Council also, and no house has been built by the local authority in those years. I can actually say, in the term of this government, 1,300 social houses have been provided for and built by the local authority. That's a phenomenal progress. As a matter of fact, I can say that more than 2,500 private homes have been built in the space of these past 4 years. And remember, we had 2 years of lockdown for construction during COVID. In fact, under this government and under Darragh O'Brien as the Minister for Housing, we have had more houses built than the combined 2 previous governments. So that's, and notwithstanding that progress, there's a lot more progress required. I absolutely understand that it's the key issue on the doorsteps, but we have introduced schemes like the Help to Buy scheme, which means that there are 500 young people a week getting the keys to their houses. We've introduced the waiving of the development levies and the water connection fees for those who want to build their own homes, which has been a huge boost. The vacant homes, we have introduced, derelict homes or whatever, €70,000 support for those who want to reinvest to bring them back into operation. So there has been a singular focus by this government. It's a long journey of progress that's required here. But what I am saying is we can point to the progress that's been made. We can point to the social housing being built. We can point to the private housing being built. If you look right across this county, you see that houses are being built. You see the progress that has been made, with more progress to continue into the future.
Not enough, though. Not enough to address the problem.
That. No, and I absolutely accept that. We have the target this year of 40,000 houses. 60,000 is delivery of houses is what we're proposing. And what we're saying to people is we've delivered this in difficult times, 2 years of lockdown to construction, and we have built more houses than the previous two governments. So we have done this in difficult circumstances. We can show you the progress. We will make even more progress going forward. We are 100% committed. We're supporting first-time buyers. We're supporting those who need to bridge the gap and don't have the finances themselves, and the local authority can take a stake in the house through the first homes. So there's a whole myriad of structures that are in place to meet people at the place they find themselves in their lives. Okay. And we can show the delivery with more to come.
Michael Healy-Rae, give them 5 more years to improve on things. What would you do as an independent TD, if re-elected, to try and get more houses built?
Good morning, Jerry. First of all, to you and to your listeners, housing and the lack of housing is not just an urban problem, it is also a rural problem. The housing inflation costs, the actual cost of building homes, is so exorbitant at present. The massive amount of take that the government takes from the building of an actual house, the VAT, all the other costs that they take, that should be one thing that should be looked at. Also, the whole issue of planning permission. It is very difficult at present to get planning permission. If you're looking to build a house yourself, all the obstacles, all the costs that are put in your way, it's as though there's something wrong with you if you want to get planning permission. And we should be encouraging people to get planning. We should be going out of our way to grant planning permissions. The derelict homes grant, you're saying what can be done. I was the first person that ever said we should have a derelict homes grant. The record of the Dáil will show that. I'm delighted that the government took up on it. They made a mistake at the beginning. I highlighted the errors with what they were actually offering to the people, and they changed that again. But what have they done now? It is extremely cumbersome. It's very difficult for a person to actually get that grant. That's another issue that has to be looked at, because there are thousands of homes that are there. People, if they were able to get the grant easier than what they are at present, they'd go ahead and do up those homes. The skills shortage that we have. We've lovely young boys and girls that are leaving this country who would be talented people in the building of homes, be they plasterers, blocklayers, electricians, all types of trades. They're leaving this country. That's an awful problem that we have. We should be encouraging those people to stay at home.
How would you fix that? If you were Minister for Rural Affairs or Minister for Housing even in a government, how would you fix it?
Well, first of all, the very first thing those people are going to want themselves is a home to live in themselves. So we have to create an environment where building is actually looked upon in a good way. You know that when you were young, Jerry, and grew up, you had builders in our locality that were building 2 and 3 and 5 and 10 houses. Unfortunately, those builders are gone. And why? Because continuous governments have done more to put them out of business than put them in.
One of the reasons would not have been like in 2011, there was nothing being built, immigration and came into it, and a lot of them left.
And another point, Jerry, is objections. And one thing, and we have to talk about the elephant in the room here, politicians have to lead with what they say and what they do themselves. We've had a spokesperson on housing, for example, in the Greens yesterday. It came out that a Green spokesperson on housing had objected to 300 homes because he didn't like them being built in his own house. The Sinn Féin housing person on housing, he has objected to thousands of houses being built in his own constituency.
Well,
that's wrong.
I have to come in and
I'll let you back in.
because that is completely untrue.
No.
That's untrue.
No.
That is.
I'll let you address it.
I didn't interfere with Paddy.
Continue, make your point briefly.
But it is a fact that these politicians have objected. Angus Osnodig objected to 350. Maybe you'd like to say that that's wrong, Pat.
I'll get to that.
Yeah. He objected to 350
Where was
in
it?
his own constituency.
What was the development? Name it.
All I can tell you, Jerry, is I certainly, as a Kerry politician, I'd encourage people to build houses, and I wouldn't be objecting to them.
Are you suggesting the right to objection be taken away?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. If a person has good, solid grounds, but it doesn't look good for politicians to be saying that they're for building houses, and at the same time then they're objecting to them in their own constituency because it doesn't suit them.
I'll let you back in a minute on that. I want to hear from Billy O'Shea. Fine Gael have been in power since 2011 on housing. Fianna Fáil are saying that they've done better than the previous two governments. What will you do to change things, to get things going on housing?
Well, one of the things that I've looked at being an auctioneer, I've seen that the stock levels have obviously been decreasing over the last number of years, and that there have been people crying out for new developments in the housing sector. Two things I think to actually push the housing sector that I think we should be focusing in on. Number one, land. You need the land to build the house on. I think we need to go sourcing land to actually get these houses built. But number two, and I think this is probably one of the most important things, apprenticeships. I think that young people should be encouraged to get into the building game, because if you're actually looking around to get any job done, trying to find a tradesman at the moment is very, very difficult and very challenging. And I think we just need to encourage our young people to get involved in the construction sector, because there's a huge opening there. Everybody knows the demand that's out there to build houses. All parties are saying it's a priority for them in Kerry. So based on that, I would be encouraging, we'll say, apprenticeship programs to be put in place to encourage young people to get into the industry, because there is a bright future in the construction sector, and I think we need to start making that more attractive to bring younger people involved, or getting them involved in the housing sector. It is a major problem throughout the county. We're hearing it on the doorsteps. I've seen it myself from my own experience in the auctioneering world, and it's a very difficult, challenging thing. But what I will say is that any targets that have been put in place with Fine Gael in relation to housing, they've met them, except for this year. They're slightly behind. They have a target of 303,000 homes by 2030, which is an average of about 60,000 per annum. Anytime they set a target, they get it. And that's the one thing I do like about Fine Gael. And I know that we'll say, and Kelly made the point back in 2011 or 2007, when employment was at a low ebb. He wanted to create 100,000 jobs. I believe by March next year, that figure will go to 1.3 million. So like the targets that they set, yes, they look ambitious, but they are achievable, and I'm fully behind the Fine Gael party in getting that target of 303,000 homes.
One thing he failed on is the planning system, with a developer yesterday in the Sunday Business Post coming out excoriating the government, saying planning timelines are missed, deadlines in Borpenala are missed, it's far too slow, major projects are delayed because of it, and the builders are tearing their hair out. What will you do to fix that over the next 5 years?
Well, in relation to the planning side of things, I would agree with Michael that I think planning in Kerry, and especially in rural Ireland, needs to be addressed. I think the rural development plan is something that certainly needs to be addressed, for the simple reason that if you own your own land, if you're living in the area and contributing to society, well, then you should be entitled to build on your own land. And I know you've said it over the last number of years, and I agree that law should, or that we should examine that area big time, particularly for the area of Kerry. I know we talk about all these figures, and they're on a national level, but on a local level, that's one area that I think I'd love to get the chance to address that, because I think that there are people out there with land, there are people there with young families that want to build.
They're waiting to build.
And they're waiting to build.
Okay,
exactly.
Paddy, I'll let you address what Michael Healy-Rae said about Sinn Féin.
Yeah, well, first of all, Michael is unable, unless he wants it correct now, to name the development that was objected to by Angus Osnodig. But what I will say is that it's not acceptable for any type of development to go in any area. For example, you wouldn't build a load of student one-bedroom or buy-to-let accommodations in Gaeltacht areas where people are crying out for accommodation. So it is true that Angus Osnodig and some other TDs or elected representatives have made observations in relation in relation
2,840
in relation
objections
to the planning applications. For example, if there was if it was contrary to the city development plan, if there was not enough tree beds in an area, you can't have all buy-to-lets in a particular area, and I think we've been vindicated on that. You can't throw student accommodation exclusively into a residential area. area, and there was observations made also where developments were going over the 4th floor, backing onto 2-storey houses where there wasn't enough solar panels or e-charging close to the city centre.
This isn't Sinn Féin which is the allegation has been Sinn Féin objecting to everything they can because they don't want housing delivered on this government. Wait till we get in, lads, and then we'll deliver.
And there's a myth being put out.
And what I'm saying,
it's not an objection; it's an observation. And elected representatives are entitled to make an observation where they feel that it's best for proper planning and development in the area.
No, it's not normal behaviour for a TD elected to the Dáil to object to 2,840 houses in his own constituency. And another TD,
if he's representing his constituents, which is a key part of the job of a TD, you always say, I'm representing the people of my constituency. If they come to you and say, this is not right, it will not work here,
are they allowed to make an observation?
If he wants to do that, and if Pat thinks that that's fine to be objecting to houses, but how in the name of goodness,
on behalf of his
we're
constituents,
in the middle of a housing crisis. Those people that would have gone into those homes, I'm sure they would have been delighted at the opportunity of doing so. But if a politician uses his position to object to those homes being built, how in the name of God can we be talking out of both sides of our mouth saying, I want houses, and then at the same time I'm objecting to them, and that's what Sinn Féin is doing.
Foley,
I just want to make a very quick point on having the environment just right for housing. And you very correctly identified the issue of planning and, that it has been an impediment to, moving at speed, as it were. The single biggest piece of legislation that has moved through the Dáil has been around the planning, and under Darragh O'Brien, hours and hours expended on it, so that there are time-based targets for turnaround of planning applications. It will be faster, it will be smoother, it will be user-friendly, as it were. And that is to ensure so that this government is looking at not just the building, they're looking at creating the environment to ensure that building can actually develop at speed. And the reference there that was made to apprenticeship, again, I want to say the single biggest investment and advancement in apprenticeship, all areas of apprenticeship, has been under this government, and I want to acknowledge the work of Niall Collins in that respect. An apprenticeship must be put on the same footing as every other career path that is chosen by a young person, and that process has begun under this government. So we can see the progress that has been delivered in this constituency alone in terms of the delivery of social housing and private homes. We're saying, see what has been done. We have the Planning Act in place now. We will deliver more going forward. We have an ambitious plan to develop 60,000 and deliver 60,000.
But you're asking people to trust you in all those things. It's under ye, Bor Panola, we're failing on their deadlines.
But again,
and not meeting them.
And still are.
But I would have to say, no. Yeah. So therefore, there had to be a whole reorganisation of the planning laws in this country. And the single biggest undertaking to do that was by this government under Darragh O'Brien. No previous government was determined or had the confidence or the ability, or indeed I would say the foresight, to actually do it. Because if the conditions aren't right, building can't take place.
All right. We're going to talk more about these things. We're going to get some of your reviews. We're going to talk about cost of living and other issues. We'll get to those with our panel after we take these. Yeah, there you go. Keep your comments coming into us on the programme this morning in relation to our debate. We have Deputy Michael Healy-Rae, independent candidate. We have independent TD, indeed, I should say, in candidate for the selection. We've Minister Norma Foley of Fianna Fáil. We've Deputy Daly of Sinn Féin and Billy O'Shea of Fine Gael. One of the big issues that's out there alongside housing is the cost of living. I went into a shop this morning on my way to work. I was buying something and the lady behind the counter told me, this will cost you 95 cents. Actually, no, we've just had to put up the prices. It's now €1.05. So that's what still in this year, even though inflation is down below 2% now from a high of 7 to 8%, the prices are still high and still going up in many instances. Billy O'Shea, what will you do to address that crisis affecting people? The fact that they're paying a lot more than they were 4 years ago, 5 years ago, for products in the shops and for daily life and daily living.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly see it in my own work in the bar that the cost of all items seems to be going up, and it is a challenge certainly for all concerned. But I think we need to take a look at, we'll say, what has been achieved over the last number of years in terms of the cost of living, and almost 3 billion has been made in permanent cost of living measures between 2022 and 24, and I think it's 5 billion has been paid in temporary cost of living measures. But I understand totally what's happening on the ground level, because people are experiencing, and you see it on the doorstep as well. They are going through a very tough time. But we have to look at things overall that have been achieved. I mean, childcare. is coming up big time. Fine Gael has actually reduced childcare benefits has costs by 50%, which has helped 220,000 children. Third level fees have been reduced, down by 500, and grants have reduced by 1,000. In the budget, we did see certain things being put in place: the lump sum payment for the fuel allowance, the disability pension, the blind pension. These are certain areas that we need to be focusing on big time. But I do understand, and I'm seeing it on the doorstep, how difficult and how challenging people are finding things, and it's something that we really have to address big time, because people are suffering out there.
Okay. Norma Foley, what will you do for the next 5 years to deal with this crisis in the immediate term, the next year?
Yep.
If you're elected?
And you're quite correct, Jerry, when you introduced it there. Inflation was running at 10%, and inflation now is actually at less than 1%. So there has been a significant decrease there, but absolutely, I accept that people aren't seeing that sufficiently for themselves. So this government has been very, very conscious of that. Look, I can speak to my own area, for example, in education. I've introduced free school books for all children. I have ensured that, for example, the school transport fees, they have been reduced significantly. €625 for a family ticket, now coming in at €125. €50 for a primary school child to get on the bus to get to school, which was previously €125. So we've had significant decreases there. We've also introduced, obviously, as you've seen, the hot school meals for our primary schools as well. But there's so much more that needs to be done. Like, we have supported businesses and need to do more in that respect. And because you referenced going into businesses there today, over €20 billion was expended during the difficult days of COVID. We've introduced measures where there have been permanent measures in terms of cost of living, and Billy has referenced it, around $3 billion, and temporary measures as well. But we need to look at the costs for people. So in childcare, a 50% cost reduction over this term of this government. Fianna Fáil are committed to ensuring that it will be no more than €200 for childcare costs going forward. Looking at decreasing energy costs as well. We've provided energy supports during this term of government, but strategically looking at the reduction of energy costs going forward, and giving a commitment that the VAT rate of 9% will be on energy, and also have given a commitment that we will look at all other aspects of social welfare. They've been increased in this government, they will be increased going forward, but also the things like the USC, given a commitment to ensure that we will cut that to 1.5%, and we must ensure from 3% to 1.5%, because we must also be careful in how we manage that, to ensure that we have funding to pay for our hospitals and to pay for our schools and so on and so forth. So we need to take a staged approach there, and we've given that commitment as well. We've also given
Daly, what will Sinn Féin do to address the cost of living problems?
Workers and families are under severe pressure, and they need a break. So what we want to do is put money back into their pots. When Mary Lou was speaking to people in California, the foreign direct investment, what they said is that the cost of living is rents, mortgages, and that was stopping people. No more than nurses, and no more than trying to get extra guards. The cost of living is a huge impediment to doing that. So what we want to do is remove the USC for all workers on the first 45,000 of their income. We want to have a €10 per child per day childcare policy to cut costs for families and invest in childcare. We want to put a month's rent back into renters' pockets with a minimum payment of €1,000 for each adult renter. And we want to deal with mortgage interest relief by giving a maximum annual benefit per household of €1,250. Also, we have other plans in our healthcare policy to deliver free prescription medicines, not to have the further increases on the carbon tax, because in a county like Kerry, where so many people are reliant on using their cars to get to work and to go about their daily business, we would reverse the hikes to excise duty for petrol and diesel, and as I said, stop the carbon tax increases. So it's an overall package for people who are squeezed in the middle, no more than our affordable housing plan, which is aimed to deal with people who are, again, over 35,000 and under 90,000.
Are you still planning to freeze rents for 3 years?
Yes.
That's your plan if you get into power?
Yes.
What would you say to landlords who are saying that's unpractical, unfeasible. That will hit me majorly if I'm trying to provide rental, and it'll get me out of the market, therefore exacerbating the rental crisis.
Well, the difficulty is that we're in a housing crisis at the moment. Rents in Kerry have increased in the last 5 years by 50%.
Yeah,
and everyone who's listening will know from listening to Radio Kerry, 1,350, 1,400 euro for a 3-bedroom semi all over Kerry, more in certain parts. So something has to be done about that, and if landlords have to deal with the fact that there would be a rent freeze for 3 years, well then so be it.
They'll pull out of the market, let's be honest.
Absolutely.
They will pull out of the market.
We'll get back into that. Michael Healy-Rae, what would you do to address the cost of living crisis if you were in Cabinet, if you're lucky enough to be a kingmaker and you're asked to serve?
I'm just after standing my toe to see am I living in the real world at all, listening to what I'm just after hearing from Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin. They're talking about the cost of living, what they're going to do about it. What did they do about it already? I'll go back to the start. And the three parties that are here, they fully and wholeheartedly supported the climate bill. It was voted on in the Dáil in 2021. In March of 2021. 10 TDs voted against it because we had serious concerns about what it was going to do to the cost of living. What we predicted at the time is exactly what's happening now. Sinn Féin are talking about bringing down the cost of carbon, diesel and petrol. My goodness, didn't they wholeheartedly support it when it went up? Mary Lou stood up inside in the Dáil and accused the government of not going far enough, quick enough. Leo Varadkar came to Kerry.
That's not the case at all. I'll have to come back in.
The reason you're sour this morning is because I'm telling the truth and it's hurting. But I'm going to keep hurting.
I'd love to hear your policy.
We'll let him finish his point, Paddy. We'll let him finish his point.
There isn't any.
I'm going to keep hurting. Leo Varadkar came to Kerry and he said that the LNG facility was not a priority for Kerry. Micheál Martin came to Kerry and he walked around with Norma and he said, I'll keep a pledge.
You're saying they haven't done enough. We're trying to get on to what you will do. What will you do to fix it?
If you will give me the same chance as the other three.
I'm just asking you the question.
But I'm saying things that maybe nobody likes to be told. But the people of Kerry like to be told it. And what happened was, the reason why we've run away cost of living at the moment is because everybody's afraid to talk about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room. And that is the high carbon, which we're living in an island. Everything needs to be delivered. You talked about going to a shop this morning. That had to be delivered by road. It didn't fall out of the clouds. So when diesel and petrol goes up, obviously everything else goes up. So you were saying, what would I do about it? The first thing I do, and I did it in 2016 because I got it into the programme for government, but unfortunately in 2020 they broke their promise and they took it out. You would have an LNG facility to give us energy security in Ireland. That'd be the first thing. There were crazy decisions but they were supported by the three parties that are here today, such as shutting down Bornamona and bringing in biomass material then to give us energy in this country. Crazy decisions, Jerry. And everybody is ignoring the elephant in the room, and that is that these taxes that were supported by Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael wholeheartedly, 10 TDs above inside in the Dáil voted against those type of things, and we were ridiculed, but we were
Norma
right.
Foley, to respond to that.
Can I just say a quick word on the LNG? I wasn't part of the negotiation for the programme for government, so I wasn't there. I'm first time TD and first woman to sit at Cabinet, but I did sit at Cabinet, so I can say in relation to LNG that as part of the Shannon Task Force strategy, number one, and part of the new planning bill that has come in, there's a recognition now of the need for an LNG facility for energy security going forward. I did that because I sat at
Why
the Cabinet
did you take
table.
it out of the programme for government?
I wasn't there for the programme of government, but I did sit at Cabinet and I've delivered.
Let him finish, Pat Daly.
Michael is talking about people and parties running away from it. The only thing Michael and the rural independents have done is run away from bringing forward proper and balanced legislation. I haven't heard any of it, only objecting to what's there. It's incorrect to say that we're in favour of the carbon tax. That's not the case. And anybody,
Let Pat Daly finish.
Take out your Google and do a Google search. Do we support the carbon tax? We have not, and in fact we want to reverse the two most recent hikes to excise duty. We've been opposing the carbon tax for the whole length of this one. Michael knows that. I don't know why he was talking rubbish in relation to the objections to planning, knowing that it wasn't an objection, it was proper sustainable development, and he's talking rubbish on this too, and he's talking about elephants in the room. It's a zoo that the rural independents maybe want to have about, but they're not bringing forward their own legislation which is balanced, and they can keep on doing that. I don't mind criticism, but when it's untrue and false,
and
I'm not going to take it.
And you know, Jerry, the only thing I have in this world is my word and my memory and what I know is a fact. Mary Lou attacked the government and said, you're not going far enough, quick enough. Daly can't deny that. It's on the record of the Dáil.
When did she support the carbon tax, Michael? Give us the date. Give us the date.
Okay, we're going to have to pause that. We've lots more to get to, a lot of issues to get to as well, a lot of listeners' issues to get to as well. We'll get to those after we take these. We're talking with four of our 17 candidates running in Kerry in the general election of 2024, takes place on the 29th of November, with Billy O'Shea of Fine Gael, with Deputy Michael Healy-Rae Independent, Minister Norma, Foley, Fianna Fáil, and Deputy Daly of Sinn Féin. I want to talk about the health service next, and I'll start with you on this, Michael Healy-Rae. We have issues in our hospital. We've about 50 vacancies in key positions. We have some of our unions heading towards maybe strike action in relation to that, the recruitment and retention issue. We've got the waiting list issue as well. Now, there have been some improvements over the last number of years. There have been an increase as well, it's fair to say, in relation to the demand in our health service. Our population is increasing, and as health needs get more complex as people age and live longer in a better society. What's your response to what you would do if you were involved?
The very first thing is what I did 3 weeks ago. When we had a vote inside in the Dáil, for example, on the carers' benefit being means tested. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael went against us, and they said no, it should continue to be means tested. I thought that was wrong, because the first thing with healthcare is try to keep people at home if you can. Our lovely older people, if they can be kept at home for longer, that's better. But unfortunately, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil didn't agree, and that's very important. We have beds that are not able to be used because we don't have enough staff. I want to thank the people that are working in the healthcare service. When the government at the time said everybody should stand up in Ireland and applaud them, I said no, we shouldn't. We should pay them properly, and that'd make more sense than condescending them by clapping for them. I thought it was nonsense at the time. What we have to do is do more to keep our young nurses and people in healthcare, in the healthcare service, keep them in Ireland, create an environment where it's more attractive, because if they go to Australia, the first thing they find is they're taking care of a smaller number of patients, whereas here they're overran, they're driven under the ground. I see what happens inside an A&E at night. I go there, I visit there, I see it firsthand on the ground. I'm in and out of the hospital and I see what's going on there. And in fairness, the people are worked into the ground. We're top heavy with management.
Would you pay them more? Would you pay them more to attract them?
I absolutely would. What I would say is that people should be encouraged to stay here. They're highly educated, but unfortunately, when they are, how many nurses have we below in Australia and places like that? And then the other thing is home help hours. We have people being allocated home help hours at present, and they're told you were entitled to so many, but we don't have the people to do the home help. Why don't we? Because we're not doing enough or paying enough to keep them in that service. And the people, again, who are giving home help today around County Kerry, and I thank them for that, and they provide an awful important service. They're the cause of people not going into semi-acute or acute beds by keeping them in their own homes. But we have to do more for the workers. They are the people who keep the service going, and they're the people we're not recognizing.
Billy O'Shea, health service, how would you fix those problems? Recruitment and retention, dealing with waiting lists, dealing with increased demand in our health service?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the trolley side of things that everybody has had some experience or knows somebody has had experience in a hospital of waiting on a trolley for a substantial period of time is down to the fact, I suppose, that the lack of number of beds in hospitals.
By the way, 2,600 people waited on trolleys so far this year in UHK.
Yeah, and that's unacceptable. One trolley is one too many, in my opinion. Increase the number of beds, obviously, in hospitals. That's certainly one thing that would have to be done. And also in relation to staff, I think our health staff need to be rewarded much better than what we're doing at the moment, and I certainly applaud the work that they're doing. My father was a GP himself. I can recall many times, he'd been called out in the middle of the night when all doctors he was called to houses, which is no longer the case because society has changed, the health service has changed. But I do appreciate the work that anybody who's associated in health, the work that they do, and I think that they should be financially rewarded. I have no problems in saying it, and if it was a case that we were to sit down and discuss it, I would be pushing for all benefits and payments that anybody in the health service deserves gets it, and I will be 100% behind that.
Okay, what would you say then to, look, €25.8 billion record budget, that if you pay people more, you give those benefits more, then we're going to get in trouble, rather than dealing with management and the management issue in our health service, more efficient delivery of services, more ingenious ways to attract people into the health service, rather than just paying out more money, what's already a bloated budget?
Yeah, but I suppose you're looking at a sector like this. You have to attract people in some way. Okay, the management side of things I do appreciate. Just in a non-political way of thinking, we have a fantastic education service. We have highly educated people. I met a nurse in Milltown, I think, during the week, who said to me that any nurse that comes out of training is recruited abroad, because the services, conditions of living, work environment are
they're young as well.
They're young.
Factor,
they're young as well.
Factor.
But I would love to see a scenario where a young person who qualifies out of any profession, because they've been educated so well by us, that they give back something to us as well, as a means of a kind of a payback and a thank you. Now, I don't know, can you put a time frame on somebody having to commit to work in their country before they go abroad? It's just an idea that I have myself.
Like that needs
but I think that we're losing too many talented people abroad, because simply we train them up and all of a sudden they're getting better conditions and payments elsewhere, and that's why they're leaving.
Okay. Pat Daly, Sinn Féin have some radical ideas for the health service.
Absolutely. I want to agree with Billy, but there are a lot of therapists, physiotherapists, OTs, speech and language, contacting us. They're not all going abroad. A lot of them actually want to work here. But the government stopped the recruitment embargo, but now they're calling it the pay and number strategy. So, for example, in Kenmare, there's no community physiotherapist for about a year now. The Killarney waiting list for physiotherapists has been stopped because there's a 2-year waiting list. Paediatric occupational therapists in Tralee and West Kerry, there's a waiting list of 206 people. They cannot recruit. There's 1.3 whole-time equivalent therapist trying to deal with a list which is increasing by about 15 people referred from schools per month. So people are sick of it. People want to change. There's a surplus of money in the country, but these waiting lists are going up and up. I want to agree with Michael, what he said about carers. Carers, first of all, the increase in the budget isn't coming into effect for carers who, as Michael said, saved the state so many millions until next summer. And if you're a carer, it should not be means tested. So we have a plan. David Cullinan has listened. He's travelled to Carsiveen and listened to the difficulties around the Ring of Kerry and in Killarney in accessing GPs. Sláinte Care has been sitting on a shelf for about 8 years now, and there is no directly employed GPs of any effect in Kerry. What we want to do is have access to a GP or a dentist when you need one.
How will Sinn Féin
end the crisis?
How will Sinn Féin fix the oversupply of management? The top heavy, we hear it everywhere. Every time top heavy, it takes a long time to talk to unions to get them to change anything in this country, particularly in the health service. Will Sinn Féin get tough and make uncomfortable decisions and say we've too many managers, not enough frontline workers?
Well, first of all, you need frontline workers, of course, right? And you need to bring Irish doctors and nurses home. But you do need management of the health service,
but not as many as we have.
And you need support staff. There is a consultant in the hospital who hasn't had support staff since May of this year and cannot recruit. And the management in the hospital are being asked, tell us by Cork, give us 5 jobs that you need, and they're putting them up, and then what's happening is they're getting 2 of them, and it's not only the families, obviously, of the children and the patients involved that are frustrated. It's the therapists, the qualified therapists who have come out of college, who have sat exams or they've done interviews in Athlone. They're on a waiting list to be brought in. Meantime, there are a couple of easy fixes as well, and the government aren't.
Okay.
And there's one last point.
Briefly.
The CAMS families, the CAMS children who are shamefully treated within the system over the past 15 years, an easy fix for them would have been help them with their court cases by giving them the money, but they're being punished even still that they can't take the case to justice.
Foley, your response to
if I could just say, and just some of the points that have been raised. So let's look at what has been achieved. So, for example, take Killarney, a brand new 130-bed community unit being facilitated there. Practically completed. I've seen it myself. I've watched its progress. In terms of carers, I want to say, so there was a €400 carer support payment last week. So much more needs to be done for carers, because carers are keeping people at home. And I want to confirm categorically that there will be no means test for carers going forward as part of the future government of Fianna Fáil.
Why did you vote against it last week?
we're setting out the agenda going forward, and we're very clear that there will be no means test. And in fact, the carers support grant will increase to €2,000. But specifically in terms of a reference was made to GPs. So the issue with the GPs, we didn't have enough of them coming out. So Fianna Fáil has committed, and we've seen during this government an increase in the number of GP training places, so that for every one GP that's retiring, there will be 2 to 3 GPs coming on stream. Equally so, just in terms of, I suppose, some of the other issues of, the great work that's done in the University Hospital, and I want to acknowledge that. But the key thing is to keep particularly older people out of hospital, keep them at home. So we have seen phenomenal progress in areas around the Pathfinder programme, which is for older people, where there's a dedicated unit where if an older person takes ill and requires an ambulance, rather than them going to hospital, the ambulance comes to them. They're kept at home, they're monitored at home by these professional staff. The ICPOP, the Integrated Services for Older People, is up and running here in Tralee, an outstanding service that's been provided to everybody from an older person point of view. We've seen an increase in the number of nurses employed in the hospital, an increase in the number of doctors. And on the issue of consultants, people said it could never be done that there would be a new contract put in place for consultant services. That has been delivered under this government.
I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with issues for each of you separately. We'll have those after we take these. Yes, indeed. If you have a view, get in touch with us, our 4 candidates here. I'm going to go straight to our next questions. A question for each of you in the time. We're very short on time, so it'll be kind of rapid fire. Norma, Foley, a listener asks about the sex education programme in our school. This is the social, physical and health education, personal health education, SPHE, that you're introducing way too radical ideas that are going to affect and warp the minds of our children. As for people who are critical, what's your response to that?
Really glad that you've raised that, Jerry. I want to say, why are we introducing social, personal and health education? Really, I think if we just look at what has happened in these last number of weeks, where we have young people who are being groomed online. We had an horrific case there just last week, a person in Northern Ireland grooming more than 3,000 children, one child ultimately dying by suicide. We are living in a world that is so different to the world in which I grew up. We need young people to be safe online. We need young people to know how to protect themselves, to respect themselves and respect others. That's what's happening in that class. And I want to be 100% clear, because there's so much misinformation, disinformation out there.
What about people say that gender confusion is being prompted by your government?
There is no ideology in this.
Pornography taught in the school.
Pornography, when it's referenced in this course, it's referenced on the guidelines that pornography is harmful, it's disrespectful in a relationship, it is not good for a relationship. And I want to be 100% clear, no explicit material will ever be shown in a classroom setting. And there's reference made to a training course for teachers. That training course. Exactly, that training course was for adults, for adult conversation and showing them what was happening abroad. Many teachers don't want to teach the subject because they're not familiar with the terminology and they're not familiar with what's happening worldwide and what children know today. This was for adults and adults only. There's no ideology of that nature being taught in school.
Okay, Pat Daly, what's your response to your party have lost ground? One of the reasons you've lost ground is because a lot of your base are effectively anti-government. You've got it wrong in terms of your policies, in terms of how we deal with the crisis, the immigration crisis coming into this country, and that you don't have a clear plan. What's your plan for immigration and your response to that?
Well, I disagree that a lot of our base are anti-immigrant in any way.
No, I'm not saying that's been the criticism. It's been one of the reasons put forward has been that you've got the message wrong for your own supporters in how you deal with the crisis, or how encouraging you would have been in terms of outside immigrants coming in and the pressure it puts on services here locally.
Well, first of all, the pressures on services locally were there long before. The pressures on GPs, the pressures on housing and pressures on accommodation were here long before there was ever a war in Ukraine. What we have always said is that we need a system that has to be fair, because we have to comply with international obligations, but it has to be efficient and it has to be enforced also. And we want to introduce an immigration management agency to ensure that when the cases to have a joined up thinking, as you said, across all the various different agencies, from having more people working in the International Protection Office so that cases can be dealt with in an efficient manner. We said, following on from the Justice Committee report and various different reports that had come 3 years ago, we said that there should be more state-run or run by housing...
Less private sector involvement.
Less private sector accommodations in areas where there are services, where there is public transport. But what happened was the government continued the model of making some people very, very wealthy, some people have earned up to 400 million in relation to it. We wanted to take it away from them to have a system in place close to services.
Okay, Michael Healy-Rae, a listener question echoing my question. Michael Healy-Rae, if elected, will you go into government if a position arose and suited your policies, or will you shy away from it?
My record is I never shied away from anything. In 2000,
what will you do if this time?
Right, but in 2016, when other people went home, I stayed above in Dublin, as did my brother Daly, for 76 days. We negotiated every day of the week. We got, like I said earlier on, the LNG facility. Yeah. I got that into the programme for government. You asked me the question. Let me finish. Yeah. That's my record. In 2020, I'll take the same amount of time.
I'll do my best to give it to you, but I'm trying to get an answer from you on what I asked.
I know, keep taking my time. In 2020, I went up to Dublin, again with my brother. We faced Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin, Fine Gael. We sat down with them. It was like going to a wedding jury. You can't go unless you get the invitation. They didn't want us, then they decided to jump into bed with the Greens, and we saw what we got out of that as a country. So what I'm saying to you is, I never back down from anything. I'll make it crystal clear to you this morning. If a situation arises, the first thing that has to happen is I'll have to get elected on the 29th of November. That's the first thing. You can't take that for granted. I would consider myself a weak link, and I would consider myself in danger. So until that I overcome that hurdle, right, and that's the first thing.
16,000 first preference votes. Are you really
try and be a newbie?
And the woman who took the last seat sitting next to him.
Hold on now 1 second. In 2002, my father came within 40 or 50 votes of losing.
That's true.
And why?
Anything
because of complacency. Everybody said, "Oh, Jackie Healy-Rae is fine." Fellas, they're saying the same thing about me now, and I don't like it because it's not true.
Okay.
So the final thing, to answer your question, I never backed from a challenge before. My record shows that. I'll go to Dublin if the people will send me. I'll sit down.
If the numbers add up, you'll be in there.
Yeah, if I'm wanted, but I will put myself forward. But on the proviso, I'm not looking for anything for me or for the Healy-Raes. What I'm looking for
has
is
to deliver for Kerry. Okay, Billy O'Shea, final question for you. You're taking over from a seasoned candidate. You're a first-time candidate. You're inexperienced. Why would you say people should vote for you, even though you are Fine Gael looking to retain a seat for the party?
Yes, I am a first-time runner in an election, no doubt about it. I've been asked several times by the party in the past to run, but it didn't suit me. I wasn't committed. Through work, through family commitments, I wasn't available, and I would not have been able to do the job right. From my life experience, I've worked as a veterinary sales rep, I've worked in the bank, I've worked as an auctioneer, and now I'm a publican. And of course, the punditry inside Radio Kerry. You put all those factors together, it's exactly what Simon Harris is looking for. He's looking for a candidate with life experiences, which I do have. And I'm passionate about the people of Kerry. I've represented Kerry in sporting terms. I want to do the same in political world. It's very, very difficult to replace somebody like Brendan Griffin, who had a fantastic track record. And as I'm going around the county, I respect the work that he has done, and he has been a fantastic ambassador for Kerry as well, and that's exactly what I want to be as well. I want to make sure that I represent the county at national level, but first of all, to do that we need to get elected. But from my life experience, I think I can bring an awful lot to for the people of Kerry.
Have you all of Fine Gael with you? Several councillors not coming out canvassing with you. That's not a good sign.
At my understanding of this situation was that when I was asked to run for Fine Gael, I asked the question, are there any sitting councillors that want to run for Fine Gael in the the general election? And the answer was no, nobody had put their hand up. And what I will say is that Brendan Griffin, when he announced over 12 months ago that he did want that he would not be running in this general election, not one person came forward to say that I want to run in the general election. And as any of the experienced politicians to my left will say to you, when you have the opportunity to run for an election, as was the case for Fine Gael with Brendan Griffin, you hold your hand up. Exactly. Okay.
All right, we're out of time. My thanks to all four of you. Best of luck on the campaign trail in relation to